Patricia Heaton speaks on Hollywood and what's happening. So let's take a look at this clip.
A really veteran comedy writer said he was in a writer's room where a bunch of the writers were in their 20s. And they had a character that was like a Marine, and he didn't like to hug anybody. He didn't want guys hugging him. He would like tense up. And they were writing this character, and one of the young writers said, "Well, that's really homophobic. We can't write that." And they said, "Listen, how does a character change and evolve unless they start in some place?"
Mm-hmm.
So why not just have him start there? And we see by the end, maybe grudgingly, but by the end, he accepts a hug. Like, you can't have that ending unless you have that beginning. So there's a certain wokeness, I think, in some young people, although there might be even a backlash against that now in this era that we're in.
I remember you telling me a couple of years ago that you were in a writer's room for a show that I think maybe never aired, where you basically felt they had to hire this diverse cast of writers, and they were basically fighting the entire time over what was offensive.
Right. Yes.
It's obvious, but it's crazy.
Right. That's because the first thing I heard was like where they came from, or what ethnicity they were, or what sexuality they identified as and I kept thinking, yeah, but can they write comedy?
You're like, great, you're a lesbian.
Right, exactly. So I think it can come back, but and I'm trying. We're taking stuff out and pitching it, so we'll see.
Do you think so?
So I'm going to show another clip from this, but it's from the Dave Rubin. His show, the Rubin Report. What do you guys think?
What a great anecdote she just said, because it proves everything we were saying for like the 7 years, that like they were just hiring based on intrinsic qualities, not actual meritocracy. Hi, I'm gay and black. Okay, what's your story pitch?
Yeah,
no, that was it.
It makes me think of Everybody Loves Raymond, the PMS episode, because they, oh my gosh, I mean, it just really gets into it. Deborah is obviously going through PMS. Raymond decides that he's going to gift her with pills to help her out with it, and when she denies that she has PMS or it affects her that badly, he has a tape recording of her going off, and I'm like, that's just to that point of, you couldn't have made that episode unless you went there, unless you just did the horrible things that we do to each other, especially during those times, because in order to show that, then you can show the growth that comes out of that. And I see less of that more and more, and we'll probably talk more about that when we get to the Star Trek funeral. We just can't talk about being human anymore.
Mm-hmm. Let's look at another clip here.
I look back, so I was always grateful, but I look back on it now and I'm like, that was the heyday.
Yeah.
You had Seinfeld, you had Friends, even going back to a show like Wings, when my first son was born in 93, I watched Wings, was so funny. So there was all these great comedies, and we got to be a part of that. And whenever you would go, either at ABC or CBS, to, one of these Television Critics Association events, and all the casts would show up, and you were like, we're all on shows. Isn't this cool? You'd see your friends from other shows.
Yeah.
And we realized that is probably not coming back now, since the advent of streaming, which blew up the whole system. Even when HBO came onto the scene, you still had the major networks. It was the 3 plus Fox was sort of there. And then you had HBO, and that was kind of it. It's not that anymore. And I realized, my goodness, we got to do that. Like, I always was grateful, but I look back on it and I thought, we really didn't realize that we were in this golden era of television.
One of the last great.
I was, oddly enough, I went to one of the TCAs once as a guest for G4. But what do we think about Patricia Heaton's comments? She's just confirming everything we know. Comedy has evolved, and a veteran like herself, I almost feel like the trouble is these new writers lack life experience and then feel they must adhere to a checklist.
They say write what you know, and they know about being diverse.
Yeah, they lack the life experience. They have to adhere to a checklist. They want to insert themselves into everything. So that way, you know, they can leave their stamp on it and say, hey, that's me. Yeah, it's more of like a narcissistic attitude as opposed to being creative, you know.
What do you think, Ramesh?
I would take I agree, but I would take a slightly different viewpoint and say that there's so much, they're such corporations now, and they're so brand oriented that everyone is so worried about offending and the outrage out there. And it's about market share, that I think that also dictates as much as anything else, is what you can't say, how you have to. There's no edge to any comedy, right? You have to shave off those edges and make everything palatable for the biggest common denominator, for the 4 quadrants or whatever, for the whole pie.
Yeah, networks don't care what's on the show. They care that they don't go viral because of something they did.